Mathew sat in his sprawling living room, his gaze locked on the massive canvas of a lion that hung on the wall. The lion looked regal, untamed, and full of power, but that was the very thing Mathew felt he lacked. To the world, he was a lion, wealthy, striking, and married to Jackie, a woman whose beauty often made strangers turn their heads. Yet deep inside, Mathew felt more like a cub lost in the shadows. His fingers drummed against the glass table. A gnawing doubt had been eating at him for weeks, a whisper in the back of his mind. Does Jackie truly love me, or just my wealth? When the echo of footsteps filled the room, Mathew turned. His father, Mr. Roberts, stepped in, leaning on his cane. His father's presence was calming, his sharp eyes always seeing more than words revealed. "Mathew, my son," he said gently, "why does your face carry the weight of 1,000 storms?" Mathew hesitated, then sighed deeply. "Papa, it's Jackie. Sometimes I feel she wears a mask. She's kind to me, but I've seen glimpses of another side, how she speaks to the staff when she thinks I'm not around. It makes me wonder, is she kind to me because of me, or because of my money?" Mr. Roberts stroked his beard, thoughtful. "That is a heavy doubt, my son. But you cannot live by shadows and feelings. You must search for the truth." Mathew frowned. "But how? I can't simply ask her. She would deny it, even if it were true." A spark flickered in his father's eyes. "Then perhaps we test her." "Test her?" Mathew leaned forward, startled. "Yes," Mr. Roberts whispered. "Let me disguise myself as your gatekeeper. Let me serve in silence. Watch her unseen. A woman's heart reveals itself in how she treats those who can give her nothing." Mathew's pulse quickened. The idea seemed wild, almost absurd. His father, a respected elder, playing a gateman, but something deep within Mathew stirred. This was his chance, his only chance. And so, the lion in the painting seemed to stare back at him, daring him to embrace courage. Not wealth, not power, but truth. The fire crackled softly in the grand living room as silence stretched between father and son. Mathew leaned forward, searching his father's expression. "Papa, you're serious about this? You want to live as a gatekeeper?" Mr. Roberts smiled faintly, his eyes gleaming with an almost mischievous spark. "Why not? I am old, yes, but not so frail that I cannot wear another man's skin for a while. If Jackie is who you hope she is, she will treat me kindly. But if she is who you fear, the mask will fall." Mathew hesitated. His heart was torn between reason and fear. "Papa, you're a chief. People respect you everywhere you go. To make you dress as a servant, a mere gateman, it feels wrong. What will people say if they find out?" Mr. Roberts tapped his cane against the marble floor, the sound echoing like a heartbeat. "What people say is wind, Mathew. Truth is stone. Do not fear shame if shame leads to wisdom. This is not about what the world thinks. It is about what is real." Mathew sat back, exhaling slowly. His father's words, as always, carved their way into his heart. For weeks he had lived with shadows of doubt that gnawed at him at night, doubts that no amount of wealth or distraction could silence. He wanted so badly to believe Jackie loved him for himself, yet the fear that her affection was tied to his fortune burned him from within. Finally, he nodded. "All right, Papa, we'll do it. But if she finds out, everything will collapse. She will never forgive us." "She will not find out," Mr. Roberts said firmly. "I have worn many faces in my time. I know how to walk unnoticed. And as for the work, I have done harder labor in my youth than standing by a gate. Let me do this for you, my son. Let me hold the lantern where you cannot see." Mathew's chest tightened. Gratitude and guilt mingled inside him. He reached for his father's hand, gripping it firmly. "Thank you, Papa. I don't know what I'd do without you." Mr. Roberts patted his son's hand with a knowing smile. "One day, you will not need me. But today, let us seek the truth together." The following day began with whispers of change. Mr. Roberts rose before dawn, leaving the comfort of his room and stepping into the world of anonymity. At a small tailor's shop in town, he ordered plain clothes, faded trousers, a threadbare shirt, an old cap. From a dusty corner, he purchased sandals so worn they seemed to carry the stories of forgotten roads. When he returned, Mathew nearly gasped. Gone was a dignified elder in fine robes and polished shoes. In his place stood a frail-looking man who could have been any labor from the streets. His father's beard looked rougher, his posture bent, his presence humbler. "Papa," Mathew whispered, you look like someone else entirely. I wouldn't recognize you if I didn't know it was you." Mr. Roberts chuckled, his eyes twinkling. "Good. That means Jackie won't recognize me either. Remember, when I walk through that gate tomorrow, I'm no longer your father. I am just a servant. Treat me as such." The weight of the plan pressed heavily on Mathew's chest. Could he really look at his father, the man who raised him, and pretend he was nothing more than hired help? The thought unsettled him, but he forced himself to nod. "I understand. But promise me, Papa, if it becomes too much, if you suffer even for a moment, we will stop." Mr. Roberts waved a hand dismissively. "You worry too much. Do you think age has made me so soft? I have walked barefoot in storms. Mathew, I have slept under skies without roofs. This little roll will not break me." That night, Mathew could barely sleep. His mind twisted with visions of Jackie, her laughter, her touch, her smile, and with questions that gnawed at him like wolves. Was it real? Was it all an act? As dawn approached, he stood by the window, staring at the lion painting again. This time, the lion seemed to sneer at him. Was he brave enough to let the truth wound him? Or would he remain in the golden cage of illusions? The morning sun spread golden light across the mansion as the house manager introduced a new worker to Jackie. "Madam," he said politely, "this is Mr. P. Roberts, the new gatekeeper." Jackie barely spared the man a glance. Her eyes, painted with subtle makeup, flicked to the worn clothes, the slouched posture, the old cap. She gave a curt nod, her voice cool. "Fine. Just make sure he does his job." Without another word, she turned and walked into the living room, her silk robe trailing behind her like a wave of indifference. Mr. Roberts stood silently, his face unreadable, though his sharp eyes noted every detail, the absence of kindness in her tone, the lack of acknowledgement that he was human, not furniture. He bowed his head slightly, murmuring, "Yes, madam," before taking his place at the gate. From his bedroom window, Mathew watched. His chest tightened as he saw Jackie's casual dismissal. He wanted to believe it meant nothing, that she was simply busy, distracted, perhaps tired. But a dark whisper in his heart muttered otherwise. The gate haste was a far cry from the comfort Mr. Roberts was used to, a small cement room with a thin bed, a cracked chair, and a rickety table. Yet he did not complain. Instead, he settled in quietly, ready to live as any servant would. Every moment was a test, every gesture a revelation waiting to unfold. That evening, Jackie hosted a few friends in the garden. Laughter floated through the air, glasses clinked, and the scent of roses mingled with perfume. As Mr. Roberts opened the gate for the arriving guests, Jackie barely acknowledged his presence. To her friends, she smiled radiantly, her voice melodic. But to him, she spared not even a glance. Mathew, seated among the guests, felt torn apart. It was only the first day, and already cracks seemed to appear. But this was only the beginning. The garden was alive that evening. The fountain gurgled softly, and strings of golden light shimmered above the guests. Jackie moved through the crowd like a queen among courtiers, her laughter bright, her beauty undeniable. Mathew watched her, torn between pride and unease. She was perfect in every way, but perfection itself can be a mask. Mr. Roberts stood by the gate, silent, invisible. He observed her carefully. The way she smiled at her friends, the warmth in her tone, it was genuine enough for them. But her eyes never softened toward him. Not once. At one point, one of Jackie's friends, a woman with sharp red nails, handed her a purse and gestured toward Mr. Roberts. "Let the gatekeeper take it," she said casually. Jackie's gaze flicked toward him, cold and dismissive. "You," she said sharply, "hold this." Mr. Roberts stepped forward, bowing slightly as he took the purse. "Yes, madam." There was no thank you, no acknowledgement, only a wave of her hand as she turned back to her friends. The moment passed quickly, unnoticed by others, but to Mr. Roberts, it was like a knife in the fabric of truth. From across the garden, Mathew's eyes met his father's for the briefest second. Though neither spoke, the silent exchange was heavy, Mathew's heart pounded. Was this the proof he feared? Or was he reading too much into small things? Later that night, when the guests were gone, Jackie walked through the hallways humming softly. She passed Mr. Roberts at the gate without a word, without even a glance. Mathew, sleepless, paced his room, his thoughts twisted into knots. He remembered the times Jackie had kissed him tenderly, whispered love into his ears, made him feel like the world stopped when she smiled. Yet now, that same woman seemed blind to the dignity of another human being. In the silence of the night, the lion in the painting seemed to watch him again. Was he a lion searching for truth, or a coward afraid of what truth would destroy? Days slipped by, and the test grew heavier. Mr. Roberts worked quietly, opening gates, carrying small packages, sweeping the dusty driveway. He wore humility like a second skin, never once slipping into his true identity. But Jackie's behavior only deepened the shadows. When she saw him, she saw not a man, but a tool. Her words were often curt, clipped, sometimes even sharp. Move faster. Don't stand there. Close the gate properly. She never said his name, never once thanked him. One afternoon, as the sun scorched the driveway, Jackie returned from shopping with arms full of designer bags. She barely looked at him before snapping, "Carry these inside." Mr. Roberts obeyed, his hands trembling slightly from the weight, his old bones aching. He carried them into the grand hall, setting them down gently. Jackie didn't even glance his way. Instead, she busied herself admiring the new dresses, humming as though he were invisible. Mathew had been watching from the staircase, his fists clenched, his jaw tight. Every instinct told him to intervene, to tell her, "This man is my father." But he couldn't. The plan depended on secrecy. He had to endure. That night, Mathew joined Jackie in bed. She lay beside him, scrolling through her phone, her face lit by the glow of the screen. He turned toward her, searching her features, longing to see the woman he once believed in completely. "Jackie," he whispered, "do you ever think about us? About what really brought us together?" She turned, puzzled. "What do you mean?" "I mean, what do you love most about me?" She smiled faintly, leaning in to kiss him. "Everything. You're my husband. Isn't that enough?" But her answer felt rehearsed, smooth and safe. Not raw, not vulnerable. His heart ached. He lay awake long after she drifted into sleep, staring at the ceiling, haunted by doubts. Down at the gate haze, Mr. Roberts sat on his narrow bed, massaging his sore hands. He whispered to himself, "Patience, old man. The truth takes time to show its face." By the end of the week, the cracks in Jackie's mask began to widen. One rainy afternoon, a delivery man arrived with a package. Mr. Roberts opened the gate, greeted him kindly, and took the parcel. Jackie appeared at the doorway, her robe wrapped around her, her expression impatient. "Is that my package?" she asked, her tone sharp. "Yes, madam," Mr. Roberts said, handing it to her with both hands. She snatched it without a word of thanks, but then her eyes narrowed. "Why are your hands shaking? Can't you hold something properly?" The remark cut deeper than she realized. Mathew, who stood nearby, felt his chest tighten. Jackie's voice, the same voice that once soothed him in moments of pain, now rang with coldness toward his disguised father. Mr. Roberts lowered his head. "Forgive me, madam. I am old. My hands are not as strong as they used to be." Jackie rolled her eyes. "Then perhaps you shouldn't be working here at all. I'll tell the house manager to look for someone stronger." The word stabbed Mathew's heart. He wanted to shout, to reveal the truth, but he bit his tongue so hard he tasted blood. That evening, as rain poured against the windows, Mathew and his father met in secret. In the dim gate haze, Mathew's eyes were stormy. "Papa, I can't take this anymore. She treats you like you're less than human. How can I sleep beside her knowing this?" Mr. Roberts placed a hand on his son's shoulder, steady and calm. "Patience, Mathew. Do not rush judgment. A heart reveals itself fully only when tested long enough. Let her show us who she is, not just in one moment, but in many." Mathew swallowed hard, his emotions churning. He wanted truth, but truth was proving heavier than he ever imagined. The storm outside raged on, and in its thunder, Mathew heard the lion's silent roar, demanding strength, demanding courage. The mansion buzzed with excitement as Jackie prepared for another lavish dinner party. Servants hurried through the halls, setting tables with silver cutlery and crystal glasses. Jackie walked among them like a conductor before an orchestra, her voice firm, her demands precise. "Make sure the roses are white, not red," she ordered the florist. "And for heaven's sake, don't let the candles drip on the tablecloth." Mathew watched from the balcony, his heart heavy. She was radiant, commanding, admired by everyone. But behind the glow, he saw the sharp edges. When the first guest arrived, Mr. Roberts, still dressed in his humble disguise, opened the gate with a polite bow. Some guests greeted him with a nod. Others ignored him altogether. Jackie barely acknowledged his presence, save for when she snapped at him to fetch something. At one point, while carrying a heavy wine crate to the cellar, Mr. Roberts stumbled. His sandals slipped on the polished floor, and the crate nearly fell. He steadied it with effort, beads of sweat dotting his forehead. Jackie, standing nearby with two of her friends, laughed lightly. "Honestly," she said, shaking her head, "we must have the clumsiest gatekeeper in town." Her friends giggled. Mathew, seated across the room, froze. His chest burned with fury, his nails digging into his palm beneath the table. Every part of him wanted to stand and scream, "That's my father you mock." But he couldn't. Not yet. As the evening wore on, Jackie sparkled before her friends, pouring wine, telling stories, filling the house with laughter. Yet to Mr. Roberts, she gave only commands and cold glances. Later, when the last guest departed, Mathew lingered in the quiet dining room, staring at the empty glasses. Jackie came to his side, smiling warmly. "Didn't you enjoy the evening? Everyone said I hosted beautifully." He turned to her slowly, his heart aching with words he could not speak. "Yes," he whispered, "beautifully." But inside, the cracks widened. The next morning, Mathew invited his father into his study. He closed the door firmly, his face pale and tired. "Papa, I can't bear this much longer. She mocks you, belittles you, treats you like a shadow. How can love live in a heart that holds no kindness?" Mr. Roberts sat quietly, leaning on his cane. "You are hurt because you see two Jackies, one for the world, one for the unseen. And the question you must answer, my son, is which one is real?" Mathew paced the floor, his hands restless. "I thought I knew her. She used to hold me as though I were the only man alive. She used to speak to me with such tenderness. But now I fear that it was all built on sand." His father's eyes softened. "Love, Mathew, is proven in how we treat those who cannot repay us. Kindness to the powerful is easy. Kindness to the powerless reveals the soul. Do not despair yet. Let her show her heart fully." Mathew sank into his chair, his voice breaking. "And what if her heart is not what I dreamed it to be? What if all this time I've been living with a stranger?" Mr. Roberts reached across the desk, placing a steady hand over his son's trembling one. "Then you will have truth. Painful, yes, but better than a life built on lies." Mathew's throat tightened. For the first time, he realized the courage his father carried, not only to disguise himself as a servant, but to face the possibility of breaking his son's heart. That evening, Mathew returned to Jackie. She greeted him with a radiant smile, embracing him warmly. "Mathew," she whispered, "you've been so distant lately. Is something wrong?" He studied her face, the perfection of her beauty, the smoothness of her words. He wanted desperately to believe her, but her kindness to him now contrasted so sharply with her cruelty to the old man at the gate that his soul twisted with conflict. "I'm just tired," he murmured, forcing a smile. "That's all." A week later, the breaking point came. It was late afternoon, and Jackie had returned from town, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. She carried shopping bags brimming with luxury goods. Mr. Roberts rushed forward to help, his old hands trembling slightly as he lifted the weight. "Careful with those." Jackie snapped. "If you drop them, you'll pay for every single item." Mr. Roberts bowed his head silently, carrying the bags toward the house. Halfway up the steps, his foot caught on the edge of the stair. One bag slipped, falling to the ground with a dull thud. Inside, a perfume bottle shattered, releasing its sharp, floral scent into the air. Jackie's face darkened with fury. "You stupid old man," she shouted, her voice echoing through the courtyard. "Do you know how much that cost? Do you think I hired you to ruin my things?" Mathew, who had just stepped out of the house, froze. His breath caught in his chest as he watched his wife lash out at his disguised father. The words were daggers, each one piercing deeper than the last. Mr. Roberts knelt slowly, gathering the shards of glass with trembling hands. Blood welled where the shards cut his skin, but he said nothing. He only whispered, "Forgive me, madam." The sight broke Mathew's heart. He rushed forward, unable to stay silent any longer. "Enough, Jackie," he shouted, his voice shaking with rage. Jackie turned, startled by the fury in his tone. "Mathew, he ruined. Do you hear yourself?" Mathew cut her off, his chest heaving. "He is a human being, not a machine. Look at him, bleeding, trembling, and you speak to him as though he were dirt beneath your shoes. Is this who you are?" Jackie's eyes widened, her lips parting in shock. For the first time, her mask slipped. But Mathew wasn't finished. "This man you treat with such contempt," he said, his voice low and trembling, "is more than you can imagine." The storm had arrived. The truth was at the doorstep. The courtyard hung in silence after Mathew's outburst. Jackie stood frozen, her eyes wide, the shattered perfume still spilling its fragrance into the air. Mr. Roberts knelt on the ground, gathering shards with blooded fingers, his head bowed as though he were nothing. Mathew's voice trembled but grew steadier with every word. "Jackie, you need to know who this man is. He's not just a gatekeeper. He is my father." The words landed like thunder. Jackie's face drained of color. "Yo, father," she whispered, staring at the bent figure before her. Slowly, Mr. Roberts lifted his gaze, his sharp eyes piercing through the disguise. His hands, streaked with blood, shook slightly as he removed his old cap. His true dignity seemed to rise from his worn clothes like light breaking through clouds. Jackie staggered backward, her hand flying to her mouth. This cannot be." Mathew's voice was heavy with pain. "Yes, for weeks. He has lived as a servant in his own son's house. He did it to see your heart. Jackie, to see who you truly are when no one is watching." Tears threatened in his eyes, but his fury kept them back. "And now, we see." Jackie's lips trembled. "Mathew, please, I didn't know. If I had known." "That's the point," Mathew cut in sharply. "You didn't know. That's why this test was pure. You showed us who you really are. To me, you are sweet, loving, beautiful. But to him, an old man you thought beneath you, you showed cruelty, impatience, mockery. That is not love. That is not kindness. That is not the woman I thought I married." Jackie's knees weakened, and she sank onto the steps, tears rolling down her face. I didn't mean." But the words hung hollow, powerless against the truth that now filled the courtyard like fire. Inside the mansion, silence stretched between them like a chasm. Jackie sat on the couch, her face pale and tear-streaked. Mathew stood by the window, staring at the lion painting. His father sat quietly, bandaging the small cuts on his hands. Finally, Jackie broke the silence. "Mathew, please listen. I never meant harm. Sometimes I forget myself with servants. I never thought it mattered. But I love you. You know I do." Mathew turned slowly, his eyes shadowed. "Do you? Or do you love what I can give you? The wealth, the life, the admiration? Because love without kindness is nothing but hunger in disguise." Her lips quivered. "Don't say that. Everything I've done for you." "For me?" Mathew's voice cracked. "What about for him?" He pointed to Mr. Roberts, who sat silently, watching. "What about for those who can't repay you? Love is not proven by how you treat the powerful. It's proven by how you treat the powerless." Jackie sobbed, clutching her chest. "I was wrong. I was blind. Please, forgive me. Give me another chance." Mr. Roberts finally spoke, his voice calm but firm. "Child, forgiveness is a river. It flows freely. But trust is a seed. Once uprooted, it takes time, care, and truth to grow again. Mathew's throat tightened. He wanted to believe her, wanted to hold on to the dream he once cherished. But the truth weighed heavy, crushing illusions he once clung to. He whispered, almost to himself, "The lion, it only roars when truth cannot be ignored." Jackie cried harder, reaching for him, but he stepped back. His heart was breaking, not only because of what she had done, but because of what he had lost. That night, Mathew sat in the study with his father. The rain tapped against the windows like fingers of memory. "I can't breathe, Papa," Mathew confessed, his voice hollow. "Everything feels shattered. I loved her. I believed in her. And now—" Mr. Roberts leaned on his cane, his eyes filled with both sorrow and strength. "My son, do you remember your mother?" Mathew's eyes softened. "Yes, she was gentle. She would smile even at the beggar who came to our door." "That is why I tested Jackie," Mr. Roberts said quietly. "I wanted to see if she carried that same flame of kindness. Because beauty fades, wealth shifts, but the heart remains. And what I saw in her heart frightened me." Mathew's chest heaved. "So what do I do now? Do I throw away my marriage? Do I cling to hope that she will change?" Mr. Roberts sighed. "That choice is yours. But know this, truth is a mirror. Once broken, you cannot pretend the cracks are not there. You can try to piece it together, but you will always see the lines." Mathew buried his face in his hands. He wished for ignorance, wished the test had never begun. But deep inside, he knew ignorance was not freedom. It was a cage. And now the door of truth was open, and he could not go back. For days, Jackie tried to mend what had been broken. She brought meals to the gatehays, her voice softer, her eyes swollen from crying. She apologized to Mr. Roberts repeatedly, begged him to see her heart anew. But Mr. Roberts received her with silence. Not cruelty, but silence. He looked at her as though her words were smoke, drifting, insubstantial. One evening, she fell to her knees before Mathew, clutching his hands. "Please, Mathew, don't let this end us. I was wrong. Yes, but I can change. I can learn. Don't take away our future because of my past mistakes." Mathew stared down at her, torn between anger and pity. His love for her had been real. His memories with her were real. But the cracks were deep, and every time he remembered her mocking laughter at his father's expense, his heart closed a little more. "Jackie," he whispered, his voice heavy, "love without respect is not love. And I cannot live with a heart that doubts you every day. This test was meant to reveal the truth, and now that I see it, I cannot unsee it." Jackie sobbed harder, her tears wetting his hands. "Don't do this. Please. I will be better. I swear it." But Mathew's heart was like the lion in the painting, silent, watchful, refusing to be deceived by illusions any longer. The morning sun rose slowly, casting golden light through the mansion's windows. The test was over. The truth had spoken. Mr. Roberts packed his few belongings from the gatehays, his disguise no longer needed. He stood tall once more, dressed in his true clothes, his dignity shining. Mathew walked beside him, his steps heavy. Jackie stood at the doorway, her face pale, her eyes pleading, but her words remained unspoken. At the gate, Mr. Roberts turned to his son. "You are a man now, Mathew. You have faced truth, and though it hurts, you are stronger for it. The lion in your heart has roared." Mathew swallowed hard, his throat burning. And what of Jackie? His father's eyes softened. "She has her journey. Perhaps she will change, perhaps she will not. But love built on wealth, not on kindness, is a house built on sand. Do not chain yourself to shadows." Mathew turned to Jackie, his heart breaking as he whispered, "Goodbye." Her tears flowed freely, her voice cracking. "Please, don't leave me." But Mathew stepped through the gate, the lion in the painting forever etched in his soul. He walked into the world not as a man who doubted, but as a man who dared to face truth, no matter how much it hurt. Behind him, Jackie's sobs filled the air. Ahead of him, silence stretched, vast and uncertain. But in that silence, Mathew felt something new, something raw and real. Freedom. And for the first time in years, He felt the lion within him begin to roar.